You're listening to The Messy Middle, the podcast that holds space for all the in between moments. I'm your host, Mila. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you've already heard the trailer or intro, then you know this isn't a polished self help podcast. This is just a space to be, to sit with the truth of where you are right now. And today we are starting with the conversation that's been sitting with me for quite some time now. So, guys, if you're anything like me, then you are in the messy middle of a struggle or a trauma that you're healing from or dealing with, or, whatever the situation is. And if you are indeed in the messy middle of a struggle, then you know that there is a point in your healing where you're just tired, you're exhausted, you're just kind of over it, right? You've been doing the work every single day, and it just always feels like there's one more, right? There's always one more layer that you have to dig through. There's always one more journal page that you have to fill out. There's always one more trigger that you have to figure out and understand before you can finally breathe, right? That is fatigue, that is exhaustion, and it's very real. So is the boredom of it all, because you're doing this by yourself for the most part. Yeah, you might have outside support from friends or family. You might be going to therapy. You might be, following coaches and counselors on social media, whatever it is. But for the most part, you're doing the work by yourself. And it's very boring because it's tedious, right? And the frustration of it all is very real also, of putting forth all the effort that you're putting forth while you see all the people around you not lifting a finger. They're not necessarily doing anything to help you outside of, your support system. I mean, um, but it seems like they're just living their lives and they're not paying you any attention. They don't realize that you are in the messy middle and that you are struggling and that you're tired. Um, People like to celebrate transformation when it looks good. Um, and what I mean by that is, when you're glowing, when you seem calm, when you seem centered, like you have it all together. But there are seasons when, you're just holding steady and just, sitting there, not necessarily sitting there and doing nothing, but you are in stillness, if you will, and you don't feel peace. The peace hasn't shown up yet. That's the kind of middle that I'm talking about. That middle space where the unraveling has stopped, but the light that was once in you hasn't come back. That's the space that needs to be acknowledged, right? Some days you're gonna look at your life and you're gonna feel like something is still missing. Some mornings, you'll wonder if the I'm okay now energy that you have is just a front. You're gonna wonder if it's just a layer that of clothing or a mask that you're putting on to cope and to make it through. But the truth of the matter is that even if it doesn't feel like it, the work is working. Okay, healing is built on small choices that you make every single day to show up for yourself. All right. And sometimes those choices are quiet. Sometimes they're messy. They look like canceling plans, crying in your car, or logging off social media because you've just had enough. Right? Those moments matter. they move you forward in ways most people will never really see. And, you might feel worn. If you do feel worn, that's a sign that you're in the messy middle. You're in the thick of it. And that takes more strength than most people will ever understand. So, if you're sitting in that middle space where you're not who you used to be, you're not who you were, but you're not quite sure of the person that you're becoming, um, I want you to know that it's okay to be there, right? You're in a normal space. Um, you are welcome in that space. Other people share that space with you, even if it feels lonely. You're not alone in that space. You don't have to explain to anybody being in that space, why you're in that space. Um, you don't have to rush your way out of that space. Please don't rush your way out of it. Um, you are allowed to take your time moving through that space. I say all the time to people, feel the way you need to feel, however you need to feel it, for however long you need to feel it. So if you are in the messy middle and you're feeling all of these feelings, feel them fully. And, maybe write them down, and do some research on what it actually means. Look up the feelings wheel and try to give yourself language for, your feelings, whatever it is, right? Um, but allow yourself to feel and allow yourself to stop trying to make it look like anything other than what it is. Okay, if you are struggling, then you're struggling. If you're in the middle of it all, if you're in the thick of it all, say that. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to say it, but don't act like that's not what it is. Um, so, you know, don't be afraid to be in that space. Like I said, you're not in that space alone. I am in that space, and this is your space too. And we will keep sitting in this space together, one messy middle at a time. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today on my first episode. I really appreciate your attention and your presence, and just for being here. I really do appreciate it. And if this episode made you feel even a little bit seen, feel free to share it with somebody. A lot of people are going through what we're talking about right now and living through their own in between season. So, if you would be a dear and share it with them, I would really appreciate it. You can also leave a comment, send me a message. You can find me on Instagram at Mila the Mindset Coach. Again, that's Instagram at Mila the Mindset Coach. Send me a message. Let me know what landed. I want to hear from you guys. And come back next Tuesday. We'll dig into another piece of the mess together. And until next week, y'all, take care.